So this next video I'm gonna upload, it's actually two shorter clips I'm combining into one because selfishly I want to talk about my grandfather Albert, the guy on the left there. Some point after my dad had become a pilot in the Air Force and had been flying for a while, he decided that he wanted to be a pilot as well. So he started working on his ratings. I actually knew my grandfather pretty well. He lived with us when I was in high school, and then after high school, when I was in college in the Air Force, I lived with him. He passed in 2005 when I was 20. But anyway, he decided he wanted to start working on his ratings and get his pilot's license, so he did. But he didn't really have a risk management approach to aviation or a safety first approach, or maybe not even a safety second approach from some of the stories that I've heard. Um, One day he flew down to have lunch with my dad, and my dad picked him up at the airport. They went out to lunch, and of course it was the 70s, and we've all seen the documentary Anchorman. So they had a few martinis with their lunch, and my dad drove them back to the airport. And they got back to the airport. My dad says, "Where's your instructor?" Because he knew he'd been taking lessons. He said, "What do you mean, my instructor? I'm on my long solo cross country down here." So he got in the airplane and flew back to Rochester. And he would fly everywhere. That's his wife, Rosina. I don't think he ever got an instrument rating, but that didn't stop him from flying IFR, of course, up and down the East Coast, down to Virginia, up to Nova Scotia, visiting the kids and grandkids. And, just from my grandmother would be in the back seat praying on her rosaries while he penetrated whatever weather happened to be in the air that day. And he even told me himself, he flew out of Rochester, New Hampshire before there were lights there, and he would say how he returned to Rochester after dark, and he didn't need the lights because he would just pick up a heading north out of Portsmouth and fly until he saw there was a dealership that was brightly lit just south of the airport. I think it's still there. So he would fly at a certain altitude until he saw the car dealership, and then he would drop down to 500 feet. And when he passed the dealership, he would start a gradual descent until he picked up the runway with his landing light. So those were just some of his exploits, but he got away with it for years, as a lot of pilots often do, I guess. But he was quite a character. He was in the Navy, small business owner, worked for himself, and got his pilot's license when he was in his 40s, very late in life. Uh, Quite the character.